How's it going today? This is Jim Prusek from the Pain PT, and we're going to talk today about catastrophizing. And catastrophizing is basically negative thinking or thinking for the worse or thinking about our health or our issues or our problems in a way that doesn't serve us. Okay, so another word for catastrophizing can be worrying. And we know that worrying can cause a lot of problems in the body. I'm going to talk to you guys today about a couple studies that are out there, and I'll link them in the notes here on the YouTube channel that support what I'm about to tell you. So worrying. Worrying is this incessant sort of negative loop or concern about something that could happen. It could happen in the future or something that's happening now. Now, if you think about worry, it doesn't serve us any purpose, does it? What's the purpose of worrying? It only adds more stress to our bodies. Now, people think that their thoughts or their worries or their catastrophizing or their rumination is nothing to be worried about. But in fact, that electricity, that signal from your brain, goes right down through your neck, through all your nerves into your body. So anytime we're excessively worrying, or we're having catastrophization, or we're thinking negatively for a while, we're actually feeding our bodies with stress. We're actually creating a fight or flight stress response in the body because all thoughts go into your body through the nerves. And the studies show, the first study I want to present to you guys talked about worry, and the amount of worry that people have was directly correlated with the number of somatic symptoms they had in their body. So more worrying equals more symptoms. And they did this through keeping a diary of people over a period of time, looking at the amount of worry in the diary, and also correlating that to physical symptoms in the body. The next study, looking at catastrophizing, which is sort of a elevated sense of worrying or thinking negatively, was about people who had a knee replacement, so knee arthroscopy. They removed the knee, put in a new knee. And these people ended up with actually more pain. The people who were catastrophizers, they took it at the beginning before the knee surgery and then afterwards. The people who were catastrophizers ended up having worse pain outcomes, worse functional outcomes, even though they had a knee replacement, even though they had a surgery to remove whatever physical part was bothering them, or that was the issue, a structural issue. They continue to have more pain. So it shows the power of the brain, and when we're worrying or thinking negatively or catastrophizing, how that can impact our bodies and sustain or even create somatic symptoms. Now, the next study looked at people who had possible traumatic events in their lives. It looked at post-traumatic stress symptoms and how both those things can sort of parlay itself into somatic symptoms in the body. But the linchpin in the study, what they looked at was catastrophizing. So what they found was that the actual traumatic event itself wasn't directly associated with chronic pain or chronic symptoms, but chronic stress or post-traumatic stress was, and catastrophizing was. So what can happen in this situation, what we can take from the study, and what I see all the time in people, is that people have maybe some traumatic stress from the past or a lot of stress happening now or at the time the symptoms started that created the somatic symptoms. The mental emotional stress was the cause. And then they went on to have these symptoms that lasted for a period of time. They didn't go away. And so they got concerned, they got worried, and people started to catastrophize. And when they did that, that kept those symptoms alive. So the symptoms started out with mental emotional stress, and then they continued on because of the person's catastrophization or worrying. That's what kept those symptoms alive. And that's what the study showed. It showed that catastrophizing was sort of this sort of mediator to continue to cause chronic somatic symptoms. So when we look at these studies so far, we're looking at what? We're looking at our own internal stressor, what we are creating ourselves from our own brains. And so with TMS, with mind-body symptoms, with the sort of neuroplastic pain, what we're trying to do, first of all, is rule out any physical problem. Okay, and we can do that through a very good history. And once we do that, we need to stop worrying. We need to drop the catastrophizing around the physical somatic symptom, because that's going to help keep this alive for you guys. It's going to keep your symptom going, especially when there isn't anything wrong. There's not much to worry about. I tell people, even if you had a true physical disorder, even if you had something, let's say cancer, it's not going to help you heal better if you're worrying. Okay, if you're stressed, it's not going to help you. Negative thinking is not going to help you heal better. It's going to make it worse just because of the way it creates inflammation and stress in the body. So we want to drop the worry, we want to drop the catastrophizing so we can move forward. Okay, the last study that came out in 2021 was also around catastrophizing and how it impacted symptoms and how it was a sort of causative factor for people to have more pain and worse outcomes functionally with MRIs. So they took MRIs of people's spines, and half the people, what they did was they told them that, hey, your spine is fine. The changes on your MRI are just normal aging changes, nothing to be concerned or worried about. The other half of the people, they actually read out the X-ray reports and described in detail all the morphological changes that have occurred from the MRI and how that impacts their joints and all this other stuff. So basically they set up a sense of worry or catastrophizing in these people. Okay. Now that was the difference in whether somebody had more symptoms or didn't. Okay. It wasn't the MRI report. It was this sort of message that the person took on and then amplified through negative thinking, worries, or catastrophizing. That was what caused worse outcomes, pain-wise and function-wise. So it's our beliefs, it's our thoughts, it's this negative thinking that can keep our symptoms turned on, even long after a physical injury or even after a mental emotional stress type trauma or injury, you could say, that caused initial symptoms. So the message here today is really, we want to drop the worry. We want to drop the catastrophizing. We want to let that go. I want you guys to try to just notice in yourselves when you're worrying excessively or you're getting quite negative, and see if you can just let that go. You don't have to change the thought and put in a different thought other than to let that thought go so that it doesn't gain traction or gain steam in your mind. It's perfectly normal and typical to have an initial burst of worry or negative thinking around symptoms that comes up from deep in your brain. But then we need to identify that and step back from it and let it go. It's not serving us at all. At all. When I ask people, does worrying help you at all? And nobody says it does. Yet people continue to worry themselves into more symptoms and think negatively about their problem when there isn't anything really wrong. This is the total crux of it, which is amazing, is that with TMS, mind-body syndrome, neuroplastic, neurocircuit pain, there isn't anything wrong with the tissue. It's just an issue of messaging from the brain to the body, okay, which includes these thoughts. The messaging is emotions, the messaging is thoughts. So we're talking about thinking today and about how we perceive and think about ourselves and our somatic symptoms. So just see if you can forget about your symptoms. I want you to take your attention away from the physical symptoms. We talked about that before in other videos, because that's just the symptom. It's not the cause. So we want to remove our attention from the symptom and we want to go upstream to the cause, which a lot of times is mental emotional stress. And we want to look at that instead. So we're dropping the worry, we're dropping the catastrophizing about these physical symptoms or about your somatic symptoms because they're not the cause. You're just making it worse. I hope this is helpful, guys. I wanted to back it up with some science because there's clear science behind what I'm telling you. And I hope you can take this on board for your own journey forward. Take care now. Bye bye.